Yes, the last topic. And that is to,
Was Tippit involved?
yes.
Yeah, was Tippit involved? Now, I don't think I have, honestly, in all honesty, I have to agree and concur with Larry Harris and Greg Larry, two Dallas researchers who studied this case the most, and they both came to the same conclusion. They both came to the same conclusion that Tippit was not involved, and I have to agree with them. But of course, as with anything in this case, there are, lots of innuendos that and stories. This is one of the oldest arguments. It's in the 26 volumes. Is that a few days just before the assassination, Lee Oswald was eating breakfast at the Dobbs House restaurant, and he was complaining to the waitress and made a scene about how they cooked his food wrong, and Officer Tippit was also in the restaurant that day. Now, I'm not saying this is true. I'm not saying it's false. It's just a story that's there, and we have to deal with it. Let's see. Also stuff that's in the 26 volumes. A guy named Andrew Armstrong. He was an employee of Jack Ruby's Carousel Club. He told agents of the FBI that he was with Ruby when Tippit's death was announced over the radio. And after learning that he had been killed, Armstrong said that Ruby said, I know that guy. Again, we were not sure what to do with this. It's very possible that he knew Ruby, but Tippit was not involved. Same thing with Larry Crawford. He was also there, and he heard Ruby say that he had known Tippit quite well. Ruby referred to the slain officer, according to him, by his first name or a nickname, and that he was definitely, quote, definitely referring to the Dallas, Texas Police Department officer who was shot that day. We have another guy named Jack Hardy Jr. He was an inmate. He confirmed Ruby's statement that he knew J D Tippit well. He said that J D Tippit was, quote, quite a frequent visitor to Ruby's clubs, along with other officers. He added that, and again, this is all laid out in Mark Lane's book, Rush to Judgment. I'm just summarizing this, and this stuff that I'm reading is right in the 26 volumes. Another FBI report shows that there was a guy named Joey Gerard, Gerard, who worked for Ruby at the Carousel Club. He recalled that he, quote, recalled seeing Tippit at the club. He was shown. Let's see. Then we have Ruby's sister, Mrs. Grant. She said that, quote, Jack knew him, and I knew him. She said that J D Tippit used to come in, quote, into both the Vegas Club and the Carousel Club, and that Jack called him his buddy. And we also have a guy named George Arnett. Again, he said that he corroborated the fact that Ruby knew Tippit. He even suggested that Ruby may have been motivated in his shooting of Oswald because he had shot Tippit, who we knew. And then we have a guy named Harold Williams who said that he was arrested by Officer Tippit, and that Ruby was in the front seat of his car, just, riding along for fun. But he told that story to Mark Lane for their film Rush to Judgment. But I can dismiss that because he wanted, he said, I'll tell my story, but you have to pay me for it. So that he's kind of not reliable. But anyway, those are the accounts that are in the 26 volumes, and there's other stuff. So the question is, was Tippit involved? I don't think so. Could he have known Ruby? It's very possible. I would be surprised if he didn't. But those are just some of the stories that are there. And you can respond, Bill, if you want to.
I don't really have anything to say about any of that stuff. I don't think, I guess I haven't really understood how you're relating it to the murder of J D Tippit.
Well, the topic is, was Tippit involved? And so therefore we have to ask, did he know Ruby? Did he know Oswald? And so I'm telling you stories that are out there in the public, in the 26 volumes, that indicate, yeah, he might have. Again, I'm not saying he was, it could very well be true, but that doesn't mean he was involved in the plot, Officer Tippit.
Yeah, no, when you're talking about J D Tippit being involved, I don't really have anything to say about it.
And you go down to Dallas and you hear a whole bunch of stories. Me living in Dallas, I literally hear stories all the time about this case. I was in the library. I was at a library last month, and I ran into Sheriff Buddy Walters' second cousin, and he confirmed, oh yeah, he did find an extra bullet in the plaza. I was in a bookstore one time, and I ran into J.C. Days, one of his son-in-laws or something. He said, oh yeah, they did switch the rifle. I've run into people at places where
they're just conspiracy theories that they hear over the years. By the way, did you know that, for example, you're talking about all these sightings. Did you know that John Wilkes Booth, so he was killed in Port Royal, Virginia. Okay. Do you know that there were reports of him being sighted in Texas and Tennessee and Georgia and Maryland and Kentucky and all that stuff, but we knew he was in Virginia. It happens.
So as I was trying to say before I was interrupted, you hear a lot of stories down here in Dallas, and they could be true, they could not be true. I personally do not think Tippit was involved, but these stories could be true.
So if you don't think Tippit was involved, then that's good enough for me. I don't have anything to say.
Yeah, I just want to go down the list a little bit about some other stuff that you can hear from Dallas. I'm going to read you this. This is by Bill Pulte, Dallas researcher. Quote, an undercover narcotics officer working for Sheriff Bill Decker was probably hired in part because he played in Ruby's club since 1948, as well as others. He was a musician in Ruby's clubs, and Ruby often visited him. The undercover operative often heard Tippit's name mentioned by Ruby. So again, like I said, it's possible he knew Ruby, but let's see. The Pig and Whistle restaurant. A guy named Earl Crater of the Pig and Whistle restaurant said that Lee Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby, and J D Tippit had eaten breakfast at his restaurant on a number of occasions at 7 a.m. He said that Oswald never had more than a cup of coffee. Now that's pretty interesting because that goes with what his wife said about how he never had more than a cup of coffee for breakfast. So again, not sure what to do with this information.
Laugh at it. Call it what it is. Bullshit.
No. You don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. These are stories these are accounts that are out there. I don't know what to do with it either.
There are accounts that were out there that John Wilkes Booth was seen in Tennessee.
We're talking about Kennedy.
It's a point, though. I'm making a point.
And going to Dallas and talking to people, hands on. You're going to find the truth in Dallas because that's where it happened, Bill. You're not going to find it up in.
You can find the truth in the National Archives in College Park, Maryland, too.
You're going to find the truth in Dallas because that's where it happened. You're not going to find it in Michigan or wherever. So you go. You go down.
I know a couple of guys in Michigan who have done some pretty great research.
You go down to Dallas. You interview people who were there, and you get these stories, and then you have to analyze them, see where they fit. If they don't fit, they don't fit. But anyway, yeah.
I'm confused, Matt. Are you arguing that Tippit was involved or he wasn't involved?
No, I don't think he was involved. But I'm telling you.
Then what are we doing here?
I'm telling you accounts that are out there that I'm not sure what to do with.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to do with that information.
Me neither. That's why I'm saying it.
Okay? I don't know what to do with the information of you just telling me that there are accounts out there. So it doesn't mean anything to me. It's laughable. It's ridiculous. And
you can't just wipe it away as nothing just because you feel like.
I don't wipe anything away as nothing, but I need evidence to look at something. And there's no evidence at all that J D Tippit was involved
I know. I agree. But I'm
Okay.
telling you story. I'm just telling you what's out there.
So if you agree, then are we ready for the closing arguments, or you still got more to say then?
Okay. Let's go on. Verda May Harrell was Johnny Maxie Witherspoon's mother. She worked at a cafe off Beckley Street at the Clifton Towers coffee shop on Davis Avenue at Ballard. Okay? And saw Tippit and Oswald at breakfast there. Oswald came in for dinner at 5 p.m. every day after work, having a hamburger platter. He always sat alone in the same isolated alcove. Okay? Oswald never talked to anyone except Verda May and always left her a 25-cent tip at this establishment. Verda May, she said he was a good customer, though they never actually conversed. Verda May, she knew J D Tippit very well and used to spend a lot of time with him at Austin's Barbecue, where they talked about children. She had 10 children herself. Okay, so again, we're not sure not quite sure what to do with this information, but that's just what's out there. And that also comes from Dallas researcher Mr. Bill Pulte. Okay.
Okay.
And they were, let's see, Tippit's actions that day were very panicky. We're not sure what he was doing. First of all, he told his son that morning, he hugged his son that morning, his oldest son, Alan, who since passed away. He told his son, no matter what happens, just know I love you, okay? Now, people automatically jump at that. Oh, my gosh, that means he's involved in the plot. But no, again, he wanted a divorce from his wife. He was head over heels for this woman. He was for this waitress. He proposed to her, and he was willing to leave his wife and marry her. So that could very well account for him telling his son that day. No matter what.
Where does that? Yeah, and that never happened. That conversation, if you want to call it that, never took place between Tippit and his son. That never happened. That's a myth.
I can confirm you it did. I can confirm to you it did.
How?
Because I have a source who was I know I have a source who was Tippit's best friend, who confirms that story was true, and that information will come out later. Okay, but that's a different place for a different time. I'm telling you what happened.
That conversation never took place, Matt.
Okay, well you can say that, but that doesn't make it true. And the neighbor that morning saw Mrs. Tippit crying, and she said, "What's wrong?" She said that Mrs. Tippit told her that her husband, that JD was leaving her, wanted a divorce. So that could account for some of Tippit's panicky behavior. Now, what panicky behavior did he have? He was seen just after the assassination. He was seen at the end of the viaduct at a gas station in his car, waiting as if for someone to cross the viaduct. He was seen by 5 people, and then he sped off at a high rate of speed. No one knows what that was about, And then of course he ran into the Top 10 record store to try and make a phone call, and he got impatient, slammed the phone down, and ran out. And he was killed minutes later. No one knows what that was about. Who's he trying to reach? Why is he in a hurry? And then he cut off a car driven by an insurance guy, James Andrews, and he stopped him, looked in his car, and then sped away. And he was killed literally a few minutes later. So all this stuff, this odd, panicky behavior of Tippit is a big question. And again, that could possibly account for this love triangle that we mentioned earlier.
And there's so many coulds.
Yes.
First of all, Dub Stark and Luis Cortines, these were the 2 guys that were inside the Top 10 record store. They didn't even tell this story about Tippit stopping in there and making this supposed mysterious phone call until 1981. And I guarantee you that in an area the size of Oak Cliff, J D Tippit, his name was more legendary from 1963 onward than was John Kennedy's. J D Tippit's name is probably legendary in Oak Cliff. I can't guarantee it, but it's my opinion that J D Tippit's name is pretty legendary in Oak Cliff. Why did Dub Stark and Luis Cortines not tell anybody until approached for an interview in 1981. Why did they wait 18 years to tell the story? And James Andrews, I mean, he didn't tell his story until 1991 when they were talking about the whole Roscoe White fiasco. And he says, oh, by the way, let me tell you about this fella. So this whole James Andrews story, if I recall correctly, and I'm just going by memory here, he says that Tippit passed him, pulled over in front of him and stopped him. Tippit gets out and goes running and looks in the back of James Andrews' car and then didn't see anything and continued back up to his car and took off.
Yep.
And James Andrews, I think, said that he even recognized the nameplate. If a police officer runs at you like a bat out of hell, like this whole scenario that James Andrews describes, are you going to look at his damn nameplate? The whole thing is nonsense. It's nonsense. And why did he wait 28 years to tell the story?
Why are you yelling, bro?
Well, what? Tell me why James Andrews waited 28 years to tell the story.
So, like I always, okay, you have to ask him. But anyway, look, this is the thing. You go down to Dallas and you talk with people. You do hands-on research, and you find people who were never interviewed by the Warren Commission.
You also find people who decide to make up stories.
Make up story. You don't know that.
28 years later.
No, you don't know that.
And why did Dub Stark and Luis Cortines at the top 10 wait 18 years? And by the way, Luis Cortines, he doesn't just stop with Tippit coming in and making a mysterious phone call, getting no answer, and speeding back off again. No, Cortines, he places himself at the Texas Theater and sees the arrest. He places himself here. He places himself there. He's got a sensational story of everything.
Do you not know that the Texas Theater is right down the street? Okay,
I'm aware of that.
From the record store? Do you not know that?
I'm totally aware of that.
I guess you don't because you don't live in Dallas. But anyway,
that doesn't make any sense. I've been to the top 10 record store and the Texas Theater before you were born. Quite honestly. Okay,
that's fine. So anyway, yeah, these are. It really makes you wonder what was Tippit, and Tippit was out of his district too. He was ordered to go to the Central Oak Cliff. He's not in Central Oak Cliff. So what the hell's he doing running around trying to make phone calls? He's panicky. It looks like he's
not running around trying to make phone calls.
Yes.
Why did Dub Stark and Luis Cortines not tell the story until 1981? Why did James Andrews not tell the story until 1991?
I'm sure there are many witnesses you believe who came out years later that you believe.
No, I do not believe Jack Tatum. I do not. I told you earlier, I don't believe that final shot, that coup de grace shot to the head occurred. I'm not believing Jack Tatum.
So like I said, just because they weren't called to testify before the Warren Commission or anything like that, does not mean that their stories are invalid or bunk. Okay. Again,
I've never said that just because they didn't testify because the story was invalid. Why did they wait 18 years and 28 years?
You're going to find the truth if you come here to Dallas and talk to people hands-on. That's what these people did, these Dallas researchers. And I'm proud to be from Dallas, okay?
Hey, Matt, can you say 3 words for me? 28 years.
Okay. Yeah, we know that. So what?
If this story really happened, he would have told the story long before 1991. I'm pretty sure James Andrews told the story for the first time in 1991. And how does put yourself in James Andrews' shoes. You're in your car. A police officer passes you and pulls over in front of you. The police officer jumps out, runs back right directly at you, looks in the back seat, probably scares the hell out of you, and then the police officer takes off. Why are you going to notice the name? Why are you going to notice the nameplate saying Tippit?
There was an account of a woman who accidentally rear-ended Tippit's car minutes before he was shot.
And she was worried he was going to be pissed because she hit him.
Yeah. So again, why all this panicky behavior by Tippit? A lot of people. Listen.
Apparently you don't, and that's fine. Actually, it's good that you don't. But I know people who will insert themselves into folklore for their 15 minutes of fame. People do it.
That's not an argument. Listen. I just lost my train of thought.
Well, what you're saying is not an argument. You're talking about stories people tell after the fact. That's not an argument. That's not an argument.
No, just because this is what people reported. Okay, you go down to Dallas, and this is what they'll tell you.
They reported it.
You're not letting me finish. Just because they're not meant.
We're having a back and forth, and you're talking about.
Darn right we are.
You're talking about folklore and fantasy.
Not folklore.
You're not debating the tip case.
It's not folklore and fantasy, Bill. This is what they reported.
They reported folklore and fantasy.
the top. How do you know that? You don't know that. You're just making that up because you don't agree with.
Why did they wait 28 years? Why did Andrews wait 28 years? Why did Stark and Cortinas wait 18 years?
There are lots of witnesses. I found many witnesses in my research who were never called before.
Yeah, and who did they tell you the killer was?
No, I'm not talking about Tippit. Well, actually, one I found. But
okay, let me ask you a question then. So the guy you found last
year. No, we're talking about.
You found him on an Oak Cliff Facebook. But no, who did he tell you the killer was?
Listen, we're not talking about that. We're talking.
Yeah, you don't want to answer the question because he told you it was Oswald.
Okay, I can't get a word in.
Well, Maddie told you it was Oswald.
Okay, listen. We're talking about Tippit's actions. A lot of people take all of his panicky actions and his strange actions as what I just described. A lot of scholars take that he was involved, but to me, it could mean, again, I don't think Tippit's involved, but it could point to something else. Maybe he's trying to arrange a meeting with his mistress or the husband or both. Or who knows? We're not so sure about that. All I can tell you,
the husband who was walking on the sidewalk 36 blocks from where he lives.
Let me finish. All we know is what people reported. Okay.
Well, we know a lot more than that. All you know is what people reported.
Okay. Again, so this goes against Bill's predetermined conclusion that it was.
It is definitely not predetermined. That's for sure. You're just late to the party.
Late to the party? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Okay. So, yes. So I just laid out for you. Overall, I don't think Tippit was involved, but his actions. But we don't know exactly what he was up to. He was panicky. He was rushing around, trying to make phone calls, doing all this. Yes, he was.
No,
yes, he was.
Nope, was not.
How do you know that? You weren't there.
How do you know it? How do you know he was? Because they told you so, and you believe it automatically.
Well, this is what people
people lie to insert themselves into stories for attention.
That doesn't mean that this is the case here. All I'm reporting is what people reported, and everyone knows the top 10 record top 10 record story. You guys can look it up. These people are credible. Okay, maybe if it was just
how the hell was Dub Stark and Luis Cortinas credible?
Maybe it was just. Let's say if it was just one person, then yeah, maybe. But we have multiple people who saw.
Multiple people making shit up.
Let me finish.
Well, hold on a second. James Andrews does not confirm Dub Stark and Luis Cortinas.
If it was one person who said Tippit was acting suspiciously after the assassination, then maybe they're trying to mix them up. But we have all these people I mentioned who are saying Tippit's acting panicky, suspicious. I don't think he's involved, but really, we need to find out. I wish we knew what he was up to. I don't think he was involved.
He wasn't up to anything. He was just patrolling the district he was sent to.
He was not in Central Oak Cliff. He was ordered to Central Oak Cliff. He wasn't in Central Oak Cliff. Anyway.
Jefferson Boulevard is pretty Central Oak Cliff.
Okay. So, anything else?
No, I just I feel like I've just been through an episode of Game of Thrones. All this fantasy.
Game of Thrones. That's what people reported. Everyone knows the top 10 records story. Everyone knows James. Everyone knows these topics.
I know
you don't like them.
That's because of Bill Drenas's article. It doesn't mean it's true.
I believe it's not just in Bill Drenas's article.